I'd like to call this September 16th, 2021 regular board meeting of Strongsville City School District to order. Mr. Anagnastu, would you take the roll?
Mrs. Bissell?
Here.
Mrs. Soe? Here. Mr. Kapinski?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Mrs. Hausum?
Here.
We are all present. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next on our agenda is our district goals. Our district goals remain academic achievement and growth, financial prudence, and community engagement. And tonight we'd like to highlight financial prudence and community engagement, and we're going to congratulate our food services team and cafeteria workers at Strongsville High School. On Wednesday, they set a new school record, serving 1,011 lunches to our high school students. This is the first time ever that SHS has topped 1,000 lunches served, and it's also a good time to remind everyone that due to the pandemic, lunch and breakfast are free for students this year. Next on our agenda is public comment. I do have a few public comment slips. First is Kevin Hantak. If you'd approach the podium, and you have approximately 3 minutes.
Thank you. All right, I live at 8539 Nancy Drive, Strongsville 44136. I'm here again today to discuss the Strongsville City School masking policy. I really like to touch on a few points that were discussed the last board meeting that really stuck out to me. The first is really the interpretation of the term recommendation in reference to the health agencies that have been recommending the universal masking policies. The repeated use of what I call qualifying terms to preface the word recommendation, such as just a recommendation, which was used by another speaker at last time, seem to imply that these health organizations are merely casually suggesting as good advice to consider universal masking. Even you, Dr. Iba, chose to add a qualifying adjective by saying simply recommendations. Organizations such as the Ohio Board of Health are not governing bodies. They do not have executive powers to enforce mandates. They do not have legislative powers to create law. What I would consider a rational society, executors and legislators go to these agencies for their expert view to determine the best practices and policies. Think about it on a personal level, like a relationship between you and your doctor. Let's say it's found that you have a condition like high blood pressure or high cholesterol or something, and your doctor prescribes a daily pill for you to take. Does your doctor mandate it, you to take the medication? Does he or she have that authority? Of course not. Your doctor recommends you take the medication, maybe even strongly recommends you take it. There's no difference with regards to the recommendations provided by the aforementioned organizations. As a reminder, with regards to the masking policy, you are the executive bodies here. I'm still seeking an answer as to why you think Strongsville City Schools should be exempt from these recommendations. Why you think you know better. Why your plan is superior. I am all for school pride, but the confidence that you all have to ignore the recommendations borders on arrogance. Another point that really stuck out to me was the clear downplaying of the effect of COVID on both children and the community as a whole. I think a reference of something like 99.99% of children who contract COVID are fine, or something like that. Such confidence in percentages like these are failure to understand this larger scale effect on the entire community. Granted that an individual's risk of a negative impact is quite small. When multiplied by a large number of occurrences, the result of the negative impact on the population is very damaging. If we look at an analogy to see the effect of what a 99.99% success rate is, Currently, U.S. commercial flight carriers are conducting approximately 5,700 passenger flights per day. Let's suppose the success rate for these flights was 99.99%. In other terms, a 0.01% failure rate. Such reliability translates to 4 plane crashes per week. As a reference, the 3-week running average of COVID cases is approximately 6,000, with 25% of the cases being children. Again, the point here isn't about anyone's individual risk, but rather it's our community's risk as a whole. The goal is not only to just keep our kids in school, but it's also to limit the effect of the spread on the community. Dr. Reiber, you stated last meeting, I'm not against universal masking, I'm not against parental choice. This is a very appeasing statement, but it lacks your actual position on the matter. You have to have one, I would imagine. However, I don't think it's appropriate for me to request you state your personal position in a public forum, as you are not an elected official. But the board, you are. Therefore, I request that each one of you board members state your current position on the implementation of a universal masking policy tonight. It'll be helpful for me and others to know your individual position on the matter. I'm almost done, thank you. I am a realist about the situation. I'm not claiming that by implementing a masking policy that there won't be spread in schools. I'm sure there still will be. However, why not provide the best chance at lowering the spread? What is the dilemma? Another analogy would be like that of wearing seatbelts. We all know that even with the use of seatbelts, there's still serious injuries and fatalities. But because seatbelts aren't 100% effective, does that mean no one should wear them? Of course not. That's absurd of a position. It's risk mitigation, as most things are in life. Again, I ask the board to take all possible steps to mitigate the risk and implement a universal masking policy. Finally, I would like to thank all the teachers and staff who are following public health officials' guidance by wearing masks. And to those who are not, please consider doing so. If your superiors won't mandate them, it doesn't mean you can't set a good example and wear them anyway. So when the school year started, my daughter asked me and my wife, do I have to wear a mask to school? I said, well, the doctors are saying you should, so yes. Her response, okay, what's for dinner tonight? She's 8.
Thank you, Mr. Hantak. Next on our list is Jess Koza.
I am Jess Koza, and I live at 9812 Hazelwood Avenue. It's been extremely difficult to channel through the emotions of the school year thus far. Let me start off by saying I'm very much aware that the reaction I may get from you tonight will not be comfortable. Welcome to my life for the last 19 months or so, or better yet, the 37 years of my life as an autistic woman trying to navigate a changing world. I have supported almost all of you up there, the ones I know. In particular, our superintendent, who I thought was a strong leader in all of this, especially last year. Though challenging, I felt the protocols in place kept us at low risk. I have always advocated, spoke highly of our district, and put forth my best efforts when supporting our levy, and was ready to hit the ground running on our renewal that is coming up. The past 2 months in my conversations with the superintendent, I haven't felt any sort of confidence going forward, and I feel like I'm back to where I was when I started at the preschool with my son, where we had all kinds of trouble. I feel like the emails and conversations have gotten cold, scripted, and condescending, and I'm not being heard or in the least bit made to feel like my efforts even matter. Some of you may understand what it's like when you get that email in your inbox about a COVID exposure in your school. Then the paranoid feeling that rips through your stomach, hoping that your child wasn't the direct contact. Well, you already know that happened to us. You already know how angry I was after I felt I was gaslighted by information that wasn't accurate. If your child wears a mask, They won't have to quarantine. Oh wait, but we didn't think about lunch. Again, and this has been my argument even before COVID started, that none of you think about our most vulnerable students. Explain to me how it's so much easier to be doing what you're doing with the little cluster mask mandates and contact tracing when it would be less time consuming and yes, less use of resources to issue a district-wide, not even just a K-5 mandate until the vaccine become available for those kids. Where's my choice? You can work with the children with medical exemptions. I don't understand how that's just not an easier thing for you to do. We have health experts and pediatricians coming out and pleading with you to require masks. The words recommended and advisory is not good enough because we have to tread lightly on people's freedoms. Where's the freedom to my free and appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment? For example, not being quarantined at home on a computer. What about our freedom to not dread an email or a phone call from schools to tell us to stay home for 10 days or put kids through the trauma of a nose swab for a sooner return? What about the freedom to be able to walk into a PTA meeting without being glared at by Strongsville's most elite moms who think they know what's best for my kids, but will curse my name on social media or make threats to call CPS on me or say things like snitches get stitches? Because even though I agree that masks feel awful, and I have said that and I have vocalized that, I do feel it was the best option to keep them in school and caught up on learning. Are we gonna keep letting this drama continue? For the sake of everybody's health and ease of mind, do the right thing and stop pandering to the disinformation.
Thank you. Next is Vanessa Smith-Whitford.
My name is Vanessa Smith-Whitford. My address is 18249 Meadow Lane. I'm certain that there is no question as to why I'm here today, but today I am not only here for myself, but also a plea from a parent who's unable to attend today because she's currently at home with a COVID infection. She asked me to present this information tonight as her COVID isolation prevents her from coming to speak to you about her family's experience with community spread in our district. Her daughter is a classmate and a friend of my daughter. Dear board members, as a parent and active participant in the community and with firsthand experience, I am asking you to please consider a mandate for masks for our students. On September 7th, my daughter tested positive for COVID-19. She was in quarantine from September 3rd with a group of other students, as another student in class next to her tested positive the day before. Over the next days, within our quarantine, my daughter started coughing. It began as just one symptom, the same symptom a handful of children have exhibited in the classroom already. On the third day of coughing, symptoms led to a fever, headache, loss of taste and smell. Within a day from her fever, her cough led to bronchitis, and for the first time, and at the advice of a doctor, she needed respiratory support in the form of albuterol and steam therapy treatments. She has since recovered, and I, vaccinated, have tested positive now. Nobody is invincible. This will be almost an entire month that my daughter and I are quarantined and/or isolated. It's been a very long 2 weeks so far. COVID for us started at one place, the classroom. My daughter was unmasked. I had given her that option to mask when she felt it was necessary so she could feel more conformity to other students and less peer pressure. Perhaps she'd participate more as she's naturally reserved. The problem was that I let my guard down. Every day we tried to make the right decision by our children, and we weigh in social, emotional, and physical, and virus prevention. I let complacency get the best of me. Instead of thinking proactively, I am now in a reacting situation, and that is a detriment, and it's dangerous if so many of us parents take this mindset and learn the hard way and let this virus spiral out of control. COVID spread is silent and fast and can be asymptomatic, or a child can suffer respiratory distress and real illness. My daughter has no underlying health issues. As I helped my child use an inhaler and put a steam mask on her face this past weekend, I felt I failed as a parent. I am not only asking that parents take masking seriously, look at the data of rising cases. I'm also asking that instead of putting this decision onto children or giving a harder task to those who require their children to wear masks and do the right thing, that we now all work together to keep sick children home and mandate masks and eliminate the peer pressure factor that comes with wearing a mask versus not. The data supports that after masks were mandated for the 5th graders, the spread and cluster cases stopped. Cases are rising, flu and cold season are around the corner, social distancing isn't happening in the capacity of last year, and in working together in the community, this means we need to listen to one another, learn from mistakes and others' experiences, and be the change by doing all we can to prevent the spread of this serious disease together, not separately. Sincerely, a 5th grade parent at Maraski. E plus R equals O. When my oldest was in 6th grade, several teachers explained this was the district rallying call. Event plus response equals outcome. The presentation went something like this. We should identify the outcome we want, noting we cannot control the event that happens, but we can control our response. I can't help but note that I think we can all identify in this case the outcome we want, which is many kids in our district healthy and in classrooms learning with their peers. We can also identify the event that is driving our inability to achieve that outcome, which is COVID infections. What we can't seem to do is proactively implement a clearly outlined strategy that continues to be used to stop outbreaks in their tracks, which is universal masking. Instead, the leaders in this district choose to allow students to not only get sick and quarantined, but also allow those same students to be educated in a substandard way. Whenever I see any staff member wearing a mask, I say thank you. Thank you for wearing a mask and modeling the right behavior for my children. Yesterday, a staff member replied back to me, "You're welcome. I don't wear it for just me or you. I wear it to help protect my 4-year-old at home." Again, I ask that as district leaders, you please model the behavior that you are asking of your families. One of you is wearing a mask again. And mandate a solution that we can all agree will have the best chance to keep students both healthy and in the classroom. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Bonnie Tennis.
Well, I see that people have everything written down and they just read it nicely. I say, for 3 minutes, it would take me days to write it because I'm a perfectionist, so I just will say from the notes what I have. And today I am going to, talk about the new construction of the new schools that are in plan, the elementary schools. I would like to, to say something in advance before it gets, planned and discussed, because I was looking at the documents. There were documents on the website and from the meetings, and it says, new construction went to shoehorn in another operating levy, renewal levy and bond issue. Probably not best time for the bond issue discussion. That was this year in January. Discussion regarding repairs versus new construction. Renewal next year, money from the new levy lasts 6 years, 2024, talk about buildings, 2025 new elementary schools. 30-year plan, which was the original, is lengthy per RIBA, need to shorten up next 5 to 10 years. Operating levy forecast renewals every other year on ballot. It's very difficult. I understand that everybody wants new schools. And all the other, districts, you even comparing to Westlake. But something has to give in. Some people can support the levy every other year and some people can't. I can't. I'm on Social Security and my son is on disability. I can't just keep putting $500 every 5 years into something. Now, something has to give in. You compared with the Westlake. That Westlake was able to build all the new schools, and I looked into it. And yes, they were able to do it, but they did it a lot earlier, and they passed the bond levy for all the schools, and they took care of it all at once. But at the same time, the teachers didn't get the increases and they took the pay cuts. And also they had it in a contract that if, that after the schools are built, and if there is still money for the raises, they will get the raises. If not, then they will have to wait for it. Now, the difference again there is that their salary schedule is nicely laid out, that for 19 years, they don't have to increase the base salary, and they still get the raises, which Strongsville has a problem, and that was the last time when we talked about, I talked about it. Okay, it's already 2 minutes. Well, I have to split this on more than one meeting. So, again, everybody's thinking, well, we all pay fair taxes, so yes, we do pay the same share, but the property value is not the same. If we look at it, and we're saying we want to destroy the school, the elementary school, the Whitney Elementary School, which is built in 1960s or others are 1970s, and they're very old, they need to be upgraded. But the homes next to it, they are also 1960s, and they have to exist, they're not being destroyed. Now, I understand that we can build a new school, but we have to cut somewhere, so maybe teachers will take a cut. And then, like the Westlake did, then the funding will be there maybe, and people will agree to pass the levy for the new schools. Now, here's an example of some properties. I mean, there are plenty of properties I could go, like say my property, because it's next to school, since 1996 went 61% up. Then you take Mr. Krupinski's, his property went up only 28% in 20 years. And Mr. Krupinski has also the homestead exemption, which I don't have because we don't qualify anymore. That was taken away from us. I see people live in $1 million homes and they have homestead exemptions and I don't. Now, then next to school is the old house that is 1970s. That house went in value 64%. Because we live next to school, then people, they increase the value. Okay, so, and then others. So I have to talk about it more next time. But I want to mention that the educational increases that are mentioned today, some of them are really, really high. And the highest one is $10,000. If you divide it on 12 months, that's $800. Someone could buy a second house for that and have a mortgage. So I would like some of it to go down and the salary schedules really to be, modified. And also there are 2 of them that did 3 steps, not 2 steps. And I don't understand because I always thought that it's allowed 1 step down, up and 1 educational. And there were 2 that was 3 steps. So I'll talk about more next meeting. I guess I ran out of time.
Thank you, Bonnie, I appreciate it. As I've said before, public comment is usually a time where the board likes to listen more than it talks. We have enough time for us to talk during the rest of the meeting. I will just share one of the things that was said was that we need to listen to one another and we need to learn from mistakes, and I think we try to do that every day and we'll continue to try to do that. Did anybody else have any comments? Next on our agenda is recognition. Dr. Rybo, do we have any recognition tonight?
We have no recognition tonight.
Next is approval of minutes. On our agenda, we have the August 5th, August 19th, and August 21st board meetings. All district video and audio recordings are a permanent part of the minutes and available on our website. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Krupinski. Any discussion? Hearing none, take the roll, please.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kapinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Soe.
and the motion carries. Next on our agenda is treasurer's report. Mr. Anagnostou.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. I do have to make a few revisions and changes to the agenda for the treasury report for this evening. I do need to remove items A, B, and C, the financial report, the fiscal year 22 permanent appropriations, and the student activity program and budgets, purpose, and goals for fiscal year 22 from the agenda. We're still working to finalize These items, we do have a temporary budget that's good through September 30th. So we have a special board meeting coming up next week, September 23rd at Polaris. So we'll utilize that meeting to present these items. So moving on to item D, grant approval. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that the following grant be approved for fiscal year '22. It's a Strongsville Education Foundation grant for the high school building Think Mathematics Classroom Cohort Grant in the amount of $12,300. And it's to utilize to purchase standing desks, whiteboards, and additional writing surfaces for the math department. And lastly is, this one requires a separate vote. I'll read the resolution and then give more details after the motion in the second. Resolution approving exemption from real property as provided in revised code 570978 and a compensation agreement executed in connection with development of certain property in the Township of Columbia. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the treasurer that a resolution approving an exemption from real property as provided in revised code 570978 and a compensation agreement executed in connection with the development of certain property in the Township of Columbia be approved as described in Exhibit D.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any discussion? George, you want to give us the background?
Yeah, so what this is for, so if you're familiar with Emerald Woods Golf Course, that was sold to a developer, and there's going to be about 500 homes, or 600 homes built into that development. With that, a portion of Columbia Station is district into Strongsville City Schools, so we do have a small portion that, of Columbia that students come to our district. And the golf course, the line went through that golf course. So of this new development, about 90 to 100 homes will be part of Strongsville City Schools. Lorain County, through revised code, has already implemented a 10-year TIF on this property that impacted both Columbia schools and Strongsville schools. And what that 10-year TIF is they will collect 75% of the tax dollars of the increased value of these homes once they're built, and the school districts receive 25%, and it's for infrastructure, so much more sewer lines. They could fund sewer lines for this development. Columbia Station School District, they worked out this agreement with Lorain County, which benefits both school districts, but we have to approve it separately, where rather than the 10-year TIF that Lorain County was able to do without any approval, that they were just able to implement, this extends it to a 30-year TIF, and the school districts would receive 52% of the property taxes in years 1 through 10, and then 75% of the taxes in years 11 through 20, then 100% in years 21 through 30. So it spreads out the immediate impact of the loss of tax dollars, and by spreading it out, we gain about $100,000 by keeping the dollars longer and also receiving them receiving them in advance, so we realize the net present value of the cash.
Any questions for George? So I will say we did look at this extensively. We have a specific lawyer who handles all of our real estate matters, who did the negotiations on our behalf. This is an improvement for both school districts. And as George pointed out, it is approximately $100,000 to the better. So we're not going to be in spite of it. I have no other comments. Take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum?
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski?
Yes.
Mr. Micko?
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell?
Yes.
And Mrs. Salee?
Yes.
and the motion carries.
And that concludes my report.
Any other questions for George for Treasurer's report? Dr. Ryba, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. I do have a few slides I want to talk about tonight, so you should have them at your seats. But I just wanted to give an update as we're talking about masking tonight from some of the public comments and talking about, masking around the district. I thought it'd be good to give some context to some of the decisions that are made, as we've had a mandate required masks for a period of time by grade level or by building. So I wanted to start with pre-K to 5 in terms of, based on our local data, what factors do we take into consideration when we make masking decisions pre-K to 5? So the first thing, when we look at the elementary level, we take a look at a cluster. Are we seeing a cluster of students, whether in the same classroom or contact traced together, that there's a relation between 2 or more cases? So that's the first thing that we take a look at. Are the cases we have, are they random? Are they sporadic based on school and or home contact tracing? Or is there a cluster? So that's the first thing we take a look at. If we see a cluster, and I'm going to pause here for a second, that's why when you take a look at our dashboard, it's not the pathway to say, well, this building has 5 and this building has 5. So why does one building have restrictions and the other doesn't? Because these factors are considered. So the first thing is there a cluster in the classroom, in the grade level, in the building? Once we see that, again, as I said in the next question, in what grades are we seeing that? Is it one grade? Is it multiple grades? And then what have we learned through contact tracing? We're able to glean a lot of information as we talk to families and do the contact tracing of, whether it came from a family member, whether it came from an activity outside of school, whether it came from a student that was quarantined because of school and later tested positive, or whether simply we just don't know. And the parents don't know. And so we take a look as to whether we learn that it's internal spread or whether it's from an external source. So those are the decisions that we go through as we take a look at the data, and Jenny and I talk on a daily basis about the data to see, will we implement masking restrictions? So let's take the 3 elementary scenarios we've had so far. So the first building that we put a mask mandate on was Sarar. We did that. First of all, is there a cluster? Yes, there was. In what grade levels? We had it in multiple grade levels. And what did we learn through contact tracing? Is that there was spread that was happening based on students' activities outside of school, which means the pool of students that could be involved based on those activities was greater. So felt that it was important to take those couple cases, put a masking mandate into place. Why do we do that? Because we want to see, are we going to continue to see positive cases? And if we continue to see positive cases, that would mean additional quarantines at school. If everyone is wearing a mask at school, quarantines are not going to occur, excluding lunch in some buildings that are further apart but may not be at 6 feet. So in terms of Sarar, multiple grade levels, outside activities, could have a bigger span of spread, so we proactively masked the entire building. To stop that, we put that in place. I think it was 8 days we had the mask mandate in place. We saw that we didn't see any increase in COVID cases. Obviously, quarantines would naturally go down because students are masked in school. We were able to lift the mask mandate, and we've had limited issues at Sarar since that point. Last week, we had Muraski. Currently, Muraski's got till tomorrow, or has until tomorrow. I will share an update with the families, and we implemented a mask mandate just in 5th grade. Well, why did you do it just in 5th grade and not the whole building like Sarar? Well, when we took a look, we had a cluster. That cluster was in 5th grade. It was in 5th grade only. We didn't have any cases in any other grade level. And based on contact tracing, it was internal. So we didn't have that risk of external activities, groups, parties, things of that nature. So we masked 5th grade only for a time period. I think that was 7 days based on when we found out. Tomorrow's the last day. So far, we've not seen any additional cases related to that cluster at Muraski. This week, we've been addressing Kinsner. So Kinsner, yesterday I put a mask mandate in effective today for 3rd grade. Was there a cluster? Yes, there was a cluster in 3rd grade. It was only in 3rd grade. At that time, we only had cases in 3rd grade, and it was internal that we were seeing the spread for the same reasons as Muraski. Implemented a mask mandate through next Friday. Today, we had a new cluster form in 5th grade. All of the contact tracing led to that cluster has nothing to do with school. It's all based on outside activities. But based on multiple grade levels, outside activities, the propensity for the possibility for increased spread, we put a mask mandate in effective tomorrow for the entire building. We'll do the same thing. That will give a time to see if any other students that were exposed test positive, and students outside of lunch will not have to quarantine based on everybody wearing a mask. So just wanted to kind of go through the process of what we use to make those decisions. And before I go to the next slide, I wanted to pause to see if there's any questions or clarifications.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I followed what you said about external, in
Yeah.
that there's, sporting, but I don't quite know what you mean by internal. Can you say it again?
Yeah, so what I mean by internal is, let's take the Muraski situation. Not to talk specifically about students, but let's say hypothetically, the student tested positive for COVID, didn't know why or where or how. So that student tested positive. We quarantined a certain number of students based on that contact tracing. Those students that were under quarantine, we had 2, I believe, right, Jenny? 2 of those students under quarantine later tested positive. So we're saying, from all the contact tracing we've done, the only thing that we know is something is happening internally. And so that's the difference of what I mean internal.
Thank you.
Mhm. So looking at grades 6 to 12, grades 6 to 12 is a little different because kids are moving, they're switching classes every period. Clusters are a little hard because they're always moving, but we still take a look at clusters. But really, what are we taking a look at is what is the prevalence of COVID cases and quarantines? What is the level that we're seeing? Obviously, depending on the level of masking that's happening with our students, the more cases you have, the more quarantines you have based on vaccination status or masking. So we take a look at what is occurring with cases and quarantines, and then the same thing, what are we learning through contact tracing? Are we seeing it through outside activities, or are we seeing kids that are quarantined test positive? I'm going from memory, so Jenny, help me if I'm wrong. I believe we've had 1 quarantine at the middle school test positive. And at the high school, 2 weeks ago, we had 8 quarantines test positive. Last week, we had 5 quarantines test positive. And then this week, none at this point in time. So that's the internal metrics that we're taking a look at. None at the middle school, so thank you for correcting me. So 0 at the middle school, 8 to 5 to now 0 at the high school. And again, quarantines based on school contact tracing that later test positive for COVID. So, the question was asked tonight, and it's a fair question of why masking? Why are we making the decisions to have masking at the buildings? The reason we're making those decisions is to keep kids in school by reducing quarantines. So when we're saying, hey, there's a cluster happening, or we're seeing increased prevalence or spread or cases, we implement masking to see, okay, let's see where this runs its course. Let's see where the positive cases go, and then we can make sure that kids can stay in school and not have to be quarantined. That's a time where I believe, as a school district, we need to make that educational decision for our families to say we're seeing quarantines, or we believe quarantines can maybe increase, which would necessitate at a minimum 5 days out of school. And so let's mandate masking to make sure, because that's what we're seeing by our local data trends. The question then bears itself as to, well, why don't you just make it mandatory masking for everybody? Because we could reduce quarantines, right? I'm on calls all the time with superintendents around the state, and anecdotally, everybody talks, those that have masking mandates, those that don't. Are they seeing less COVID cases? Are they not? It depends on the school district. It depends on the location. It depends on the vaccination rate. You really can't compare apples to apples. I was talking with another Northeast Ohio superintendent. His vaccination rate of his high school students is over 90%. They really don't have very many. They have mask recommendations like we do. They really don't see a whole lot of COVID spread or quarantines because of such a high vaccination rate. Other school districts don't have that. And so have that high rate. So, as we take a look at why not masking for all, what we've said as a school district, and I've recommended to the board, is that we are going to take a look at our local data. We are going to give the opportunity, as long as it's educationally sound, that parents can have a choice in whether their children will wear a mask at school. As a parent, I know that I can make decisions for my children, and as a parent, I have a certain level of risk that I'm willing to have with my own kids. As a superintendent, as I have to manage and oversee all students, that's a decision where I have to be more cautious. And as we take a look at parental choice, I believe, based on our local data, that the cautious approach of using that, putting mask mandates in place when we need to, has been beneficial, has worked, has honored parents and student choice, has kept kids in school predominantly. Parents are choosing what level of risk they want to have with masking, if their kids are going to wear them or not. And like I said, when we feel that that's not educationally sound, we'll make that decision to reduce quarantines so students can stay in school. In terms of Strongsville High School, we've been talking a lot about Strongsville High School. I've sent messages every Friday to our students and parents, letting them know, going back to what do we look at the secondary level? We look at cases, the prevalence of cases and quarantines. And so my video message and my written message has been, we need to work together because things are getting high in terms of the cases and the quarantines. And if we don't see a change, then we will have to mandate masks again, so that we can keep kids in school and ensure that we're protecting their education. So what I've shared with you is, I've broken this down into two slides for you. These are the past 3 weeks. This week obviously is September 13th to 16th, or 13th through the 16th. And these are dates, I think those are Monday through Thursday dates. So the reason that I have that there is I've been giving an update every Friday, right? So we track COVID data on our dashboard that we have is Monday through Sunday. But I want to give an update. I want to give an update to our families every Friday as to where we're at. So I take a look at the Monday through Thursday data, and then I take a look at the Monday through Sunday data. So for the first slide that we're looking at is Monday through Thursday. So you can see on the 30th through the 2nd, we had 15, Monday through Thursday, we had 15 isolations, those are cases. We had 120 students just in those 4 days that were quarantined. If you take a look at the average daily counts, that's simply taking 15 divided by 4 days, 120 divided by 4 days. So that's saying on average we were seeing 4 isolations and 30 quarantines. We had no baseline data. We had baseline data, but not a Monday through Thursday, so we just left that count, the increase and the increased percentage there. And then I took a look at what's the average quarantines per case. So that's just simply 120 divided by 15. For every student that tested positive, on average, we were quarantining 8 students. So does that make sense for that data there? So that first week, August 30th to September 2nd, I sent my video message out to the high school students and parents and said, we need to work together. We need to reduce this. We can't continue to have the number of quarantines that we're seeing. The next week was Labor Day week. So that's what the asterisk means, is this is just a note that it's based on 3 days of school, not 4 days because we didn't have Monday. But we had 19, we still counted during that same period of time. So we had 19 isolations, 97 quarantines. If you do the math, I divided by 3 because we only had 3 school days. So 19 divided by 3 is 6.3 instead of divided by 4. And you could see that we had an increase in isolations that week. We had a decrease in quarantines. And the average quarantine per case was 5.1. Good direction, but we also had 1 less day of school. So when you take a look at that, we had students test positive, but they weren't in school on Monday. So are we really seeing a trend? I sent a message out to our high school students and parents and said, things have to improve. We've got a choice. We've started to see some increase, but we need to continue to see some improvement. This week, as of right now, we had, from Monday to Thursday, we had 11 isolations and 54 quarantines. So you could see a significant decrease in positive cases and isolations, 8 less cases as compared to last week, 43 less quarantines, both of them around 42 to 44% decrease. The average quarantine per case is in a similar fashion as last week, but we're continuing to see the numbers decline. This chart, now ignore the dates. I forgot that I was doing Monday through Thursday on my dates there, but it's the same week. It's just August 30th to September 5th, September 6th to September 12th, and September 13th to what would be the 19th. So this is Monday through Sunday. So same idea, same data, but we're just looking at the full week. And so you can see the case counts there from the full week. That adds in Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You could see in from last week where we saw a decline. I didn't put the data for this week yet because we're not there yet. But based on what we looked at, we're trending Last week, at this time, we had, 43 more cases and 8 more isolations. We're trending in the right direction to see a consistent decrease for this week, which is a positive. So, in my last communication to the high school students and parents, we talked about choices, and those choices have outcomes. And, we have a choice to get vaccinated. We have a choice to wear a mask. And we have a choice to do neither, but that choice has an outcome with it, which means there's the chance of being quarantined. So I want to thank our students and parents for the work that they did based on the message that we shared to take care of what we needed to take care of at the high school. So at this time, I am continuing to suggest and recommend to the board that we continue with recommendation for masks and not requiring them at this time, based on the significant decrease in data that we've seen. But I want to talk through a few next steps, because at the high school, we're seeing a trend that's moving in the right direction. But what we've done so far is we gave kind of a 2-week notice. Here's what we're looking at. My recommendation to the board, again, as I said, that we continue with recommendation for masks, but not require. But we move away from the 2-week notice, and we use our local data based like we do in other buildings, that when we see trends, we act on those trends. So what I want the message to be clear is, this is not, oh, we made it, he's recommending, recommended masks, we can kind of go back into our old ways. No, if we see an uptick, I'm recommending that, just like I do with the elementary buildings, that we move forward and enact mandatory masking when local data trends necessitate. The other thing, so we're looking for sustained improvement. We'll continue to look at the trend data, and we want to see sustained improvement in COVID cases and quarantines. One of the things that I did throughout this week is I had focus groups at the high school with a variety of staff. I've spoken at length with our building principal on behalf of the administrative team. Jenny and I have spoken at length. One of the things that I learned as we talked this week is, our main goal is if students choose not to get vaccinated, choose not to wear a mask, and they are quarantined, we're doing everything possible for education to continue, even though they've made those choices. So teachers are implementing, based on the class, a variety of strategies to keep kids engaged. So it may be live streaming, it may be high quality videos. Some of our classes are so performance-based, there's alternative means to do that. But what we're seeing is not all students are partaking in that opportunity. And it's creating a challenge for our teachers to provide meaningful engagement at work while students are on quarantine. And I'm talking about healthy students. If you're on quarantine and you're healthy, we code your absence as an excused present code. What that means is you're excused because you're on quarantine, but it doesn't detract any hours. You're not technically missing. We need students to engage. We need them to engage with the work that's being done, because what's happening is a portion of our students are not doing the work during their quarantining. Teachers are providing those opportunities. Then they come back and say, hey, what did I miss the last 5 days? That's not sustainable for our teachers to continue to play catch up with students. It's not sustainable for our students learning to continue to have those gaps. So we are going to sit down and provide clarity and expectations for students that are healthy during quarantine. We're going to set clear expectations for attendance, meaning if we have expectations that you're going to engage this way, just like we did when we were in remote learning, and you're not engaging, parents have the option to call you off like they always have, right? If my child's sick, call your child off. But if not, this is not a 5-day vacation. Students need to be engaged. They need to be following through. And when students don't attend school without a valid reason, it's an unexcused absence. So those are things that we'll be clarifying in the coming days and weeks. One of the things that we've talked about, and I want to commend Mr. Wingler, our entire administrative team at the high school. I'd like to commend our Strongsville Police Department, all of our teachers and staff, and most importantly, our students. We've had a significant number of challenges at the high school this past week. Unfortunately, a lot of those challenges were fueled in social media by rumor. And Mr. Wingler, I think, did a phenomenal job of accurately detailing what was rumor and what was fact. But we had a great day of school today. And our students did a phenomenal job. Our police and administration did, and our teachers and staff. But we need to see sustained improvement in student behavior at the high school. One of the challenges we have is with COVID and during the pandemic, there's additional responsibilities that are placed on administrators that sometimes necessitate that they're in their office doing work or contact tracing versus being visible in the halls. We have plenty of monitors, we have plenty of staff to help provide supervision that's there. We had a fight at the high school yesterday. I know there was concerns, do we have enough supervision? I've seen the video, I've talked to Mr. Wingler. There was a staff member there in 5 seconds to break up the altercation. So we're doing what we need to do, but we need students to take on their part of the responsibility. We need to supervise, we need to monitor, we need to be there to support a conducive learning environment in a school environment. But we're also talking about 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old young people, and they have a responsibility in this as well. They have a responsibility is that when they see a TikTok challenge that talks about vandalizing school property, that they have a choice to say, that's a bad idea. And I'm not going to bring a hammer and I'm not going to bring screwdrivers into school to break apart a bathroom. So this is a commitment by all of us, school staff, our students, and our families to address this and move forward. And we need to see that if we're going to be able to allow for some of the student choice that we've allowed so far. The other part that we want to look at the high school based on the scope and size of it is we do need to provide additional support for contact tracing. We've got a short-term solution that Jenny's worked on to help out during the days where it's a little more cumbersome, but we'll be working through a long-term solution to help support the high school administration so they can lead beyond managing the pandemic and be able to help support in a variety of areas. And then the last thing there, which is just for all students, I wanted to let the community and the board know, one of the meetings that I was in today was with a superintendent that's in Warren County. He provided an update in the timeline that the Ohio Department of Health is going to work. So again, context if you're not aware, the Warren County superintendents reached out to the Ohio Department of Health, said you've got to give us some relief from these quarantine rules. We're quarantining hundreds of healthy kids and denying them an education. They proposed a variety of suggestions. The Ohio Department of Health and them worked together. They finalized what those suggestions are, and the study will be starting here shortly. So we will be keeping an eye on that. We'll continue to explore what we can do to make sure healthy students can continue to stay in school, as long as we can do that in a way that protects the safety and health of not only our students and our staff, but our parents and our community at large. So we just wanted to give an update that we're continuing to look at that. And with that, Mr. Micko and the rest of the board, that's the update that I wanted to provide for my report this month, unless there's any questions or further feedback.
Any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I know you mentioned that the one Northeast Ohio superintendent said his vaccination rates were 90%.
Yeah.
Do you know what ours are?
We, based on we've talked, based on our legal advice, the requirement of vaccination status without a purpose is not recommended. Mm-hmm. So what we've shared with our parents is that, hey, it'd be great if we do contact tracing, you're in the system, we don't even have to, we're going to still let you know that you were a direct contact, right? We still provide that communication, but then you don't have to worry about providing a card at a later time. So I think predominantly parents did not take us up on that offer, and just when we've contacted them, they've given their card. But Jenny, do you have I know a while ago, based on, it's not specific data because we don't know it's a sample size, right? Based on the students that were coming in that were direct contact, how many of those were quarantined? A few weeks ago, we were estimating around 60%.
Yes.
But that's been increasing lately.
60% were vaccinated at the time. Based on the number that they were quarantining, 60% of those were vaccinated.
And so, what we're seeing is when we're doing our contact tracing now, based on the vaccination status of our students and our students that are making the unvaccinated students that are making the great choice to mask, we've seen a significant reduction in quarantines based on both of those factors combined. But we've seen in the recent weeks that a little higher percentage of those students have been vaccinated than in the past. Again, it's a sample size, so it's tough to say, are these just similar students that we've seen, or is it truly representative of 1,900 students?
I have a couple of questions. As you were talking about, tracking the data of students that are quarantined and such, so like hypothetical, at the high school, there's one student that tests positive. Given one of the charts you showed us, approximately 8 students would be quarantined from that one. Let's say half are vaccinated and or masked, the other half are neither, right? I know we're following the ones that end up quarantined, but are we also following the ones that were direct contacts but avoided quarantine to see if any of those students are testing positive?
Jenny?
So, obviously we contact them. I spoke with our nurse directly about this. Are we contacting those parents? Are we at least letting them know that they don't have to, quarantine? And when they're questioning and they're calling and they're talking, are you vaccinated? Did you have a mask? That communication is happening. And those parents are made aware. But as far as, we speak daily in the details of everything, and I have not heard yet that this student was a direct contact, but didn't need to quarantine, but then tested positive and is a direct contact of this person.
Okay.
So I have yet to hear that. I can double check with the nurses, but that has not come up yet.
And one of the things we share with our families, obviously, is even if you don't have to quarantine based on the rules, that's as long as you're not symptomatic. That if you're symptomatic, then the quarantine kicks in, and then, like as Jenny said, we haven't had any positive cases from that as of yet.
And the other one, just a point of clarity, when you were talking about the high-quality education that the experiences the teachers are trying to do for the kids who are quarantined, were you talking, and I know there's more information yet to come, but were you talking specifically about the high school or all students?
So we're providing that for all students, K to 12. So if you're quarantined, the same rules apply. That, the teacher will work based on their subject area to provide options, whether that be live streamed, whether that be the instructional videos, or whether it be some other avenue that makes sense based on the teacher's class. So that's being provided to all students to quarantine. The reason I brought it up specifically for the high school, as at other levels, I am not seeing the level of concern that students aren't engaging in that work. It's at the high school level where students are not engaging in that and keeping up on their work during quarantine. At the other levels, that hasn't been brought up to me as a concern.
Thank you.
Well, I have another question. Of those students that are quarantined, Jenny, are you seeing like on that 5th day is when they can go get tested, and then are you seeing a lot of students doing that, going to get tested on that 5th day?
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers, Sherry, of that, but I could total it all up because we are marking them. But that is an option for a lot of parents, and a lot of parents are doing that because every day, if you see on the dashboard that there were a certain amount of quarantines and now there's not, and we're reporting this, that's maybe because some of them are taking advantage of that modified quarantine. And so, it's really hard to kind of look at that dashboard every day and total it up or try to keep track because of those things. So some do have that shortened quarantine. I mean, it just depends. If they are, going to come out of quarantine and it's on the weekend and it doesn't matter, then maybe they won't put their child through a test. Many, if they are symptomatic, are getting tested because they want to know. And so, they'll do that. But, some are taking advantage of that because, I was just at the high school today and they want to be there. They want to be in school. They want to, they seemed excited today. There was a calmness and, so they do want to take advantage of that if they can.
But we wouldn't have any information on who is getting tested, right? We wouldn't know, we wouldn't know like, okay, this person's quarantined, they got tested, and they're, I guess they would say if they were negative, they would come in and say, I can go to school now.
Yeah, they do have to provide the test results to us if they choose that route. We can't allow them to come back on day 8 unless we get those results. So we are seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
But if they don't choose to get tested and they don't communicate, or they do choose and they don't communicate back to us, then we don't know. Some do get tested and some turn out positive. That has happened, and that's typically because they do have symptoms.
So I will just echo the compliments to the high school. I know it has been a taxing week, I think is one way to put it. But I do want to speak officially that we do appreciate all the hard work that they've put in I spoke with Bill at one point, and he takes it as a point of pride to respond to parents and to make sure that every parent that has a legitimate concern about the safety of their child has a response. And if that means he's up till 11:30 sending emails, he is. But that goes to the staff that we have at the high school, which is similar to the commitment we have throughout the district. We are doing the best we can day by day. I don't know if everyone agrees, but it seems like school board has become very exciting. And every time you go to the news, there's news about this school board or that school board. So what I'm focused on, and what I think we're focused on as a board, is that we're aware that there are agendas, there are opinions, there are all kinds of things swirling in the world at large about COVID, about all of these issues. The decisions that we make, we focus on what is best for Strongsville at this time. And so I am, it is a difficult situation, and we are going to get through it day by day. But I will share as far as how we analyze it. I want to compliment Cameron. I want to compliment Jenny. I want to compliment the entire team. Whether it looks like it or not, we're having the same discussions and the same reviews of data and what's the right thing to do every day, multiple times a day. And to a T, every time it is what is best for our students in Strongsville. And as far as the public is concerned, we will continue to do that. We will center all our decisions on what we feel is best for Strongsville. And we will listen, and if we need to make different decisions tomorrow or the next day, we'll make different decisions tomorrow or the next day. That's really all I had to say. Are there any other questions or comments? We may continue in the agenda.
Thank you. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Bruckner, our Operations Manager, for the Business Service Report for the month. Steve?
Good evening, everyone. A couple of items from the Business Services Department. The first one is bus routes and stops. Be it resolved upon the recommendation of the Superintendent that all bus routes and bus stops presented by the Transportation Department for the 2021-2022 school year be approved, and that the Operations Manager and the Supervisor of Transportation be authorized to adjust the routes and stops as necessary during this school year. The second items are gifts that were given to the district. The first is that St. Joseph Catholic Church donated gift cards totaling $985 to Whitney Elementary School to be used for school supplies and clothing items for students in need. The local Books A Million at South Park Mall facilitated a summer book drive culminating in the donation of $2,500 worth of books to be distributed district-wide. Ms. Gail Trimper donated a keyboard valued at $700 to the Whitney Elementary School Music Department, and Hertz Flowers donated name tag magnets to Strongsville High School MI classrooms for use by students wearing name tags during coffee service.
Thank you, Steve. Next up is Aaron Green, our Director of Curriculum, with the Curriculum Report. Aaron?
Good evening. 2 items tonight for your consideration. Item 1 under curriculum is an amendment to the Apex Learning Digital Curriculum Solutions Agreement. The amendment is to extend this term through August 31st, 2022, as in Exhibit E. What this will do is allow us to utilize Apex courses for our Solo Academy should we need to. So we do a lot of our advanced placement classes through Apex. We didn't utilize them yet, but second semester we would be able to. Item 2 is an agreement, a student-teacher affiliation agreement between Strongsville City Schools and Capital University. That is shown in Exhibit F. And again, this allows us to partner with the college for them to place students here in our district for student teaching experiences. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. We do not have any student services items for this month, but Jenny has made up for it in Human Resources. So I'll turn over to Jenny for her report.
Always busy, always busy. Okay, under Human Resources, this evening I have the following items for your consideration. Under E1, we have the reduction in force of a non-certificated staff member. Under E2, resignations for non-certificated staff members. Under E3, an appointment for a non-certificated staff member. Continuing appointments for administrative substitute, appointments for certificated substitutes, and appointments for non-certificated substitutes. Appointment for home instruction tutors, appointments for certificated supplemental contracts prorated. Under E4, changes in hours for non-certificated staff members. Under E5, we have a change in status for certificated staff member, change in status for non-certificated staff member. And under E6, we have educational upgrades. And I do need to make one change, Mr. Micko, in, under E6. We have Christine Pasco. There was an error in her master's hours, so she should read master's 30 on step 19 to master's 50 on step 19. So that's master's 30 to master's 50.
Not the fifth, so it's,
Instead of the 15,
that's 30.
that's
and then the
30, and
30 is
instead of the
50.
30 is 50. You got it.
Thank you.
Under E7, stipends for resident educator committee.
Jenny, before you go on, I think we had a name change on that one too, didn't we?
It was under E6.
It's under E7.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
getting to it.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
Under E7, again, stipends for resident educator committee, and then we have stipends for our resident educator mentors, and this is where the name changes. Under the mentee column, we have, it says Michael Buckley, we just forgot the A, it's Michaela Buckley. Spelled the same as Michael, but with an A at the end. Continuing stipends for our technology coaches, stipends for our webmasters. Under E8, we have medical leaves for certificated staff, medical leaves for non-certificated staff members. Under E9, unpaid leave for certificated staff member and unpaid leaves for non-certificated staff members. And that concludes my lengthy report.
Thank you, Jenny. We do not have anything under technology this month, so with that, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Do we have any questions for Jenny through Dr. Ryba or Jenny alone? Next on our agenda is report on Polaris Career Center. Mrs. Bissell.
Just a small report today. School there has been in full session for as long as we've been here, and things are going well and largely uneventful. So that's good news. And just a reminder that you can enroll as an adult in courses. If you go to the website, there's a large red text at the top. You click there, and there's your opportunities. So far, enrollment has been excellent in those programs. So if you're interested, please check it out. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Michelle. Report on legislation. Mrs. Buckner-Salee, do you have anything?
I don't have anything.
So I don't have anything prepared. I will share with the community that we are aware that at the legislative level, everything from mask mandates to vaccines, vaccine mandates to all the different ways we're going to respond to the pandemic continues to be debated at a legislative level, and we'll continue to pay attention and act accordingly. Board liaison reports. Would we like to start with City Council?
Sure. This has been a very busy month. They came off of recess in September and have accomplished a lot of things so far. So a couple of things of note. First of all, we want to extend our congratulations to Tim Zvonchek for being recognized as an All-American Post Commander for the VFW Post 3345 in Strongsville here. And that post has also been recognized as an All-American Post. So this is not given out, all the time to all groups. This is reserved for the best of the best in terms of their success in meeting the mission of the program. So the VFW here is very active and doing good work, so we extend our congratulations to them. And then a couple of other things. One, it should be up and running here shortly. The Are You OK program is for seniors in the community who might need to receive daily phone calls to check on their well-being. So be on the lookout for information on how to sign up for that if you or a family member or neighbor is interested in that. And then the and additionally, the Silver Sneaker Program is finally coming to Strongsville. I know this has been something that's been considered and looked at and tossed around for years here. So this will allow seniors to access our rec center through their Medicare. So this is a win-win. This allows our residents more access at a reasonable price. For them, it's nothing. But the rec center also benefits in that they receive, I think it's $2.50 per visit from Medicare. So this is win-win for the community, so I'm really excited about that. And finally, you may have seen it's on social media all over the place, the new walkability initiative that's taking place. So this includes multiple steps they're looking at, and hopefully it's coming in the spring, but there's no definitive date. Building a new playground over near Safety Town, kind of near the rec there. Repairing the walkways that would allow you to walk from the center of town back towards the rec center and increasing the signage there. And then currently, Castletown Park, right next to the library, is undergoing some renovation. Multiple thank yous there. Chick-fil-A, as you know, is closed, so there's less traffic at that intersection right now. But they are closed for remodeling. And while those employees are kind of waiting, they have are volunteering to help clean up the playground. So it has been power washed. I watched them do that the other day. And then they will be staining it and repairing any, dangerous portions of that. So that will get a facelift and should be done in the next week or so. Also, thank you to Sherwin-Williams, who gave us a good deal on the stain. And then this is also relevant because it came up here a couple of times. The tennis courts have been addressed. And are open for play. So they didn't get a full overhaul like we did, but they did patch the tennis courts, repaint them. They painted them also for pickleball, and I hear the pickleball nets are on order and should be installed shortly. And then the new nets were put on the tennis courts previously. So the tennis courts should be in good shape if you want to check those out. And that concludes my report.
I caught the walkability has multiple steps involved, so I wanted to congratulate you on that one. Next is Strongsville Education Foundation. Mrs. Hausum?
Yes, they met last Thursday. I want to thank them again for funding the $13,000 Building Thinking Mathematics grant. And they also have another grant under review for STEM STANGs, so I'm anxious to hear what that one is going to involve. Also want to mention that the foundation will be doing a fundraiser for the Mentor October 15th home varsity football game. It will include a prize package, some gear, Browns tickets, a 55-inch LED television, as well as special seating in a pickup truck with pizza to watch the game in the end zone. Pricing for tickets will likely be around $10, and I think they're going to do it online, and I know there will be more details coming out about that. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Laura. Next is Strongsville PTA Council.
Yes, the PTA Council approved their budget for the 2021-2022 school year. And they will be offering teacher and staff grants and scholarships again this year. They're talking about hosting a virtual trivia fundraiser in the fall. And then Founders Day is slated to be held on February 3rd. From 6 to 9. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Sherry. And next is OSBA Student Achievement. Mr. Kropinski.
Thank you, Mr. Micko. We have two exciting items tonight. The Strongsville Education Foundation, as mentioned previously, has awarded a $12,300 grant to our middle school math teachers. Since 1984, the foundation has raised funds to foster creativity, innovation, and outstanding achievement for students. We thank them for their commitment, their continued support, and their generosity. We congratulate Kim Scott, middle school math coach, and teachers Melissa Novak, Chris Fitzgerald, Lisa DeLong, Ann Forcappa, and Katie Glick for obtaining the grant with the support of their principal, Jessica Boytum. The following excerpts are from their application. Backed with significant research and data from the book Building Thinking Classrooms in Mathematics, we see the need for students to be more resilient and have a more positive attitude towards their abilities to persevere in problem solving. Our project aligns with the district's model Mustang mindset by empowering students to be collaborative. The building thinking in mathematics classroom belief corresponds directly with the Foundation's mission of fostering creative and innovative thinking. Our main goal is to transform our students' misconceptions about their role in math classroom from being passive receivers of knowledge toward actively taking ownership in their learning. This will be an exciting classroom experience for students, for sure. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. And I know I want to, on behalf of the board, thank the SEF for funding this and thank all of their donors for helping us with this. But we're going to have to get more information so that we can visualize it. But I think it's a great project, and we're looking forward for it to bear fruit. Next is board committee reports. Finance Committee, Sherry? Stay tuned. Policy Committee, we also need to have a meeting decided sometime in the, traditionally, Cameron, that's sometime in,
Yeah, I'm meeting with our consultant, I think, next week, so probably September, so mid-October we'll meet.
I know we're all excited and
I
can't
am.
wait. Facilities Committee?
Yes, we did meet last Thursday. Unfortunately, we did not have enough committee members attend to make quorum. So Mr. Breckner is sending via email 3 consultant proposals on a population study. Those will go out to our committee members to look through. We'll have to schedule a meeting before our November meeting that was already previously scheduled so that we can make a decision and select a firm to conduct the study. We'll give notice of the meeting once the date is finalized. That concludes my report.
Is there anything for Business Advisory Council other than stay tuned?
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. Next on our agenda is consent calendar. Action by the Board of Education and adoption of the consent calendar means that all items appearing in the agenda with asterisks are adopted by one single motion unless a member of the board or superintendent requests otherwise. To read into the record, we are removing from the treasurer's report A, B, C, and D. Or that was a check mark. I apologize. A, B, and C are removed.
Actually, since we didn't vote on D, can I make a correction to it?
Yes, you may.
We have listed high school and after.
It's the middle
Mr.
school?
It's the middle school.
So change the H to an M. So the grant is for the SEF Middle School Building Thinking Mathematics Classroom Cohort Grant. That correction is on D. Again, under the treasurer's report, we're removing A, B, and C from the agenda. In addition, we had a correction under the superintendent's report. Section 9E6, Christine Pasco, from MA 3019 to MA 5019. And Michael is actually Michaela under 9-7. Michaela Buckley. Don't have any other corrections. Were there any requests for otherwise or anything else to be pulled off the consent calendar? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any discussion? Take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kapinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes.
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Sully.
Yes.
Motion carries. Superintendent's timely information.
Thank you, Mr. Miko. Just a few highlights. We got parent-teacher conferences coming up for the fall, so those list the dates there for the different levels. As a reminder, we have school these days. These are evening conferences on 2 separate nights for each level. So if it hasn't already been communicated shortly, they'll start communicating ways to sign up and schedule your parent-teacher conference. And just thank you to our parents for continuing to engage and be a part of their children's education. Just as another reminder, if you would like to get a text message from us when we send out our email updates, just text Y to 67587. That will enroll you in the system, and hopefully in the future, I will actually send the message to the correct people when I do that. So that'll get you the text message, and when I don't give a phone call, I send a text so people can know to check their email. Just a special thanks to our Strongsville athletic boosters. They've done this, it's been a tradition, a very generous tradition for a handful of years. But it's important to have our students come to the athletic events to cheer on their classmates. And once again, they're donating the funds to supplement the loss of revenue for the district from ticket sales from students. So students will be allowed to enter middle school and high school athletic contests for free. This excludes high school varsity football games, high school varsity boys basketball, and any OHSAA tournaments, but all of the other sports and events are free of charge for our middle school and high school students. So come on out and support your classmates and see some great athletic competition throughout the entire school year. And once again, thank you for the boosters for making this happen for all of our students. As Mr. Micko shared, we're breaking records with kids eating lunch at the high school. Just as a reminder, free breakfast and lunch services is there for students throughout the entire school year, and that also applies to our students in the Solo Academy who have the option to pick up meals at some select locations on select days. And I also wanted to make mention, our parents are aware of this. Mr. Micko, you've mentioned this in the past. But we do have a renewal levy that's going to be on the November ballot or the absentee ballot if you've requested early voting. So we got our issue number. It is issue 68 in Cuyahoga County. There's another number for the portion of our community that live in Lorraine Township, but issue 68 for the majority of our voters. This is a renewal levy, which means there are no new taxes. It also means that we made a commitment to our community and our parents that we would be able to be financially stable through the 25-26 school year. This renewal levy helps to support that goal, and we will meet that promise of the 25-26 school year based on our current projections inclusive of the renewal levy. So no new taxes. Help us meet that financial commitment moving forward without having to ask the community for additional funds through 25-26. And it helps us to do the great work that we're doing as a school district on behalf of our parents and students. Up-to-date technology, resources, textbooks, staff to support our students no matter what their needs may be to ensure that we're providing that premier educational, academic, athletic, and arts experience that we want for all of our students. So again, parents, keep your eye out on the weekly newsletters from your principals. And the district will continue to share information about the upcoming renewal levy, and we will also be sharing information through our various outlets with as much community as we possibly can reach in the coming weeks before the election. And that concludes my timely information.
And it is issue 42 for Lorraine County.
Thank you, George.
So 68 for, issue 68 for Cuyahoga County, issue 42 for Lorraine County.
Thank you for that quick update on our levy. I know we'll have lots more information. I've said before that our goal is always to earn the support of the taxpayer, and so if there's any questions the community ever has, please make sure to address it to us, because we do mean it. We want to earn your support. We've done it before. We're going to continue to do it, and we'll do it by doing good work every day. And the renewal was my Board of Education other, so
Apologize.
I have no others. Does anybody else have any
I have
comments?
an other.
Go ahead.
Some new information came in. I only gave one of the great things that happened under student achievement. There is a second. Strongsville High School has 4 National Merit Scholarship semifinalists. The top 1% of the PSAT test takers, more than 3 million students take the test each year. Those students' names are Benjamin Hawk, Jacob Huber, Kristen Johnson, and Cole Smith. I certainly congratulate them for their scholarship. That concludes my second item. Thank you.
And that's just awesome. Congratulations to them. Any others? Hearing none, we do have meeting notification. We have a special Board of Education meeting retreat Thursday, September 23rd at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom at Polaris Career Center. Then we are back to here for a Board of Education meeting work session on October 7th at 7 PM in this room. And then our regular Board of Education meeting will be held Thursday, October 21st in this room. Executive session. We do have reason for executive session on the topics of
To consider the employment of a public employee and to consider matters required to be kept confidential by a law.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Hausum, second by Mr. Kropinski. Any discussion? Hearing none, please take the roll.
Mrs. Hausum,
Yes.
Mr. Kropinski,
Yes.
Mr. Miko,
Yes,
Mrs. Bissell,
Yes.
and Mrs. Salee.
Yes.
the motion carries. We will enter into executive session at 8:30. We have no expectation of business otherwise. We do have a football game tomorrow, so good luck to the varsity football team. Thank you for your attention and have a good evening.